All right, Lucas, you are my last portfolio review of the day. So let's make
Sweet.
this a good one.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell me what you're doing now, what you would like to be doing, anything you dislike or you're having trouble with, and I'll see what I can help out with.
Cool. I'm Lucas. I'm 23 and I've been I did graphic design in college for a 3-year program. I don't know where you're from, but in Canada, in Ontario, we do 3 years. Um, Initially out of that, I didn't really jump into the field right away. I was tree planting and I was just kind of procrastinating.
Did you say tree
But
planting?
yeah,
Okay, cool. Wait, like
uh,
metaphorically, or you were actually planting trees?
like actually planting trees.
Awesome, that's dope.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a trap though, because you can make a lot of money really fast and it's very easy to go back. So
Really? It's
yeah,
very lucrative, you say.
very so I
Interesting.
was like procrastinating actually getting a job in the field, whatever. And I initially, when I was in school, I started doing digital art on TikTok actually. And I was drawing my followers and then built like a huge platform. Like I got like over 200,000 followers in like a month from drawing my followers. So then I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll just like do that. So I did that for a little bit. Like commissions were fine, but like I wanted something more stable. So then I started applying for agencies, which I've come to learn is very difficult to get into. I got in as a graphic designer for a mattress firm. So I'm doing like their web design, their graphic design, but it's not very. I don't feel like I'm challenging myself at all. I honestly don't think I'm really learning anything as far as like in the design world. Like I get given on a piece of paper what I need to do and do it. I have zero creative freedom. I have zero really anything. And it's like all the technical skills I learned in school are like we don't do that. Like throw it out the window.
Sure,
So
yeah.
it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like, and it's no work that I could put in my portfolio because it's like, it's not even work that I would want to put my name on, to be honest with you. But it pays the
Why is that?
bills. Um, I don't want to say it's ugly, but it is ugly. like, um, like I, the dude that I'm basically reporting to is 80, and he owns the company, and it looks like an 80-year-old designed it.
So you're getting designs and then building it?
No, I'm doing like ads in newspapers. I'm doing like website like content changes, so like landing pages and like banners on websites. I'm doing like billboards, that kind of stuff
Okay.
for this company.
So is it fair to say that you want to get out and go to like a
Yeah,
more creative spot, whether
yeah,
that's an agency or a company? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
correct.
How long have you been at this mattress firm?
Since October, so
Is it
not
mattress
even like
firm or is it just a mattress firm?
it's Mattress Mart.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right. So, and I'm sorry, you said a year?
I've only been there since October, so not even.
Okay. All right. Well, quick recommendation, stay there for at least a year, stick it out.
Yeah,
This
yeah, I'm
way you
trying.
can start to poke your head up around a year or so and, start to think about where you want to go. Um, so like, what would you like to get out of this portfolio review? Is it more like, hey, what can I do in preparation for that? Or is it like, I need to move now? Like what
I
was,
honestly, I want to be able to like be proud of my portfolio and like when I'm applying to other agencies because I am currently right now. I want to I want it to be up to par because I'm still actively applying to different agencies. I feel like my portfolio and it's like I don't have enough work on it. I've been freelancing, so I have a lot of freelance work or a bit of freelance work on it.
mm,
Um, so yeah, maybe just getting it kind of up to par with like
gotcha. Okay.
where it should be, where can it be in the
All
field.
right. So let's just jump into it. Let's look at your
Mhm.
portfolio website. Immediately, first note, I would check if this yellow is quote unquote accessible. It's really bright.
Yeah.
And when you use it, like I see Luca Tenta. So don't worry about writing notes. Like I'll send you this recording and you'll
Okay.
have like a document. So but this yellow is super bright. So think about that. Also, I think your website is a bit broken. If I shrink it, things start to disappear off the page. What are you using currently?
It's Wix, which they don't do any resizing formats. It's automatic for you.
Okay, so this is something to consider of like, what tool do you want your portfolio? I mean, at the end of the day, like what I like to recommend is when you do start to send your stuff out, send out presentations for interviews or for opportunity roles that are open. I've always used to come from a place of like, yeah, I have my portfolio website and you can go look at that, but like, here's a presentation of work that is like specifically tailored to like what you guys do and why I think I'm good for this role. So something to think about of like, do you put a presentation together because like rejiggering your website might take a lot? Or do you take the time to like, get your website, get your portfolio on a new website or a new tool, and like that's going to be your thing. So something to think about there. I'm not a fan of this, like what I'll call like fluffy, like headline you have, like this is where creativity meets functionality and design comes to life. Like, yeah, of course, like, of course it does. Like, that's what a designer does, like that's what a creative person does. So like, what is it that you're trying to do? Like, I used to say something like I'm a digital designer and a digital designer that understands how businesses operate or how business like operates or something like that, right? Because like I figured out that like when I work with clients, they appreciate that like I'm not all like head in, cloud, or sorry, my brain's fried today. My head's in the clouds and just thinking of these like really big ideas. Like I'm really practical and like what's like practical for this like small business that I'm working with to actually do. So think about like, and I know like that was specifically because I was looking for clients. You are sort of looking for a full-time role. It sounds like you're looking to like get into.
It's
So
honestly, it's both, which is
sure,
another
whatever is going to like pay the bills,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So think about it like this, like, sure, you can use the hi, I'm Lucas. Like everyone loves that when they're starting off. It makes it feel a little less like cringy, I guess, to everyone's self. But like, think of it like I'm a designer that does this for this, right? Like I do branding, I do illustration, I do design. I build digital experiences, whatever that might be for you, and the most practical sense of like what's going to make sense for that client. Is that first part, and then that second part is for exciting small businesses or big mattress companies or blah 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 blah. Like that's the format that you want to kind of think of. This is where creativity meets functionality and design comes to life. Is like it's just, it works, but not for someone who's like getting experience right now, who like needs to be a little bit more pointed at like where they want to go rather than just like kind of big and broad. It's too broad for me.
Okay, that's fair.
Like it's gonna help you more to be specific now as you're just starting off, as you're just kind of getting your legs, than it is to be like, I do everything and I make it look good too,
Yeah. I used to have it targeted more brand design, which is like what I initially wanted to do, but now I'm in this cross field of doing like illustration as well as like logo design, website design. And I'm like, I can't pinpoint every single one of those with
Well, hey, branding's a great general word that's still somewhat like rings for people to allow yourself to do those things, right? Because at the end of the day, I mean, listen, realistically, I think you have to be honest with yourself. Like right now, for me, I do branding and I do website design. That is my bread and butter. That is what I do every day, not only for clients, but for myself. And that is the work that I seek out, right? Now,
Mhm.
realistically, you have to be honest to yourself. Like, do you do web design? Do you like are these the things you really want to be doing, or is it just because you happen to be doing them now, right? Like, what is the
Yeah,
work that you
no.
want to be doing?
Yeah.
So
Uh,
that be really intentional with that. Like, if you're doing web design now because it's like a part of the job, is that really what you want to be doing? Do you feel confident doing it? Like, or is it more like, I can sure design pages for you based on the branding that I've developed, like kind of think about that and
yeah.
let that like mold in your head for a bit. Let that stew. Um, what project should I pick here?
Um, do Groovy Grandpa right in the middle there.
Okay.
That one is not a case study. It's just, or not really a case study. It's just like a project.
Okay, let's go back to something that you would say is a case study and then come back to Groovy Grandpa after.
Um, okay, the bowling one, the first one there.
Okay.
This
The
is one I did in school. It's
Brilliant.
not even a real
That's fine.
company, or it is real, but yeah.
That's fine. The first project on my portfolio for years was something that I made up on my own and did it and did a bunch of stuff for it that I was really proud of. And that got me jobs. So like there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that. Um
yeah.
so Mariel consistently stands out as well. Great. Objectives. Cool. Improve overall site structure to enable easier browsing. Okay. Maybe a little wordsmithing there. Create more engaging and current logo. Wordsmithing. I would say something
Mhm.
like, you know, update the brand to have a more contemporary and relevant feel to its audience, right? Or to a newer audience, or introduce the brand to a younger generation of
Yeah.
customers, whatever.
Okay.
Create a more cohesive tone of voice through all platforms. That's a good one. That is an important one. Yeah. Um, okay, let's talk about order really quickly. So
Mhm.
I like to introduce these in very small pieces. And perhaps like that's where so you have a thumbnail. Okay. So perhaps like that's where this little smidget of image goes in. Cause like I see you have all of this, right? You're like, hey, here's everything that I came up with. Great. I'm
Yeah.
also gonna slip in a note now of like, if you decide to either put together a presentation or update your portfolio website, like I don't think this template is working for you. I don't think
Okay.
this platform's working for you. So I would think about like, take a look at other portfolios, get an idea of like what you find really interesting. Cause like, you made this asset, I'm guessing, because like that's what this template said that you had to make an image that was like this big, right? Whereas like instead you could have something that's a little bit more like, wow, and
Mhm.
extravagant and like a big punch of like, yeah, I'm a designer.
Yeah.
Um, what I like to do, back to this case study, what I like to do is sort of introduce these things as like tiny bits and pieces as I go, because you don't want to like just shoot everything off at the beginning and be like, yeah, this is the brand identity. Like, I like to walk through it exactly how I'm going to talk about it. So where I like to start is like, here was Maryvale bowling alley or bowling center. This is what it looked like before. Um,
Hmm.
and I would even go as far as like, hey, here's a couple of pictures of the outside. Grab some pictures from Google Maps, whatever. It's old, it's dated, it's blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to really bring some new life to this. Then my next slide is going to be this logo process, kind of like what you're doing, right? So,
Hmm.
um, I would make sure I have a reference of what their old logo looked like. And then I would start to introduce like, yeah, so their old logo looked like this. I wanted to maybe play with that and still keep some of the originality. However, you made that decision, you want to like articulate that on the page, right?
Hmm.
And this is like a great opportunity to show your sketches. Then, before I get into colors, because it's weird that, that you have colors and then your sketches, then I'm
Hmm.
showing them the actual logo, right? Like, cool, this is what it looks like in black and white. You're kind of getting that here, right? Black
Yeah.
and white. I'm not a fan of this like kind of photoshopped, like neon. It's not my favorite, but you're getting close. Um, yeah, and then you just like jump right into like bringing it all together. You know, we made
Yeah.
shirts and we made mock-ups and we made this stuff. Like, yes, that is great, but like that's the end, you know, like that's the stuff that
Mhm.
like is really available because like you can just grab a mock and throw a logo on it, right?
Yeah.
Um, then I would go into like, okay, color theory, because you have this color palette, but I don't see it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So going into like that discussion of like, you know, yeah, this is the black and white logo. This is how color is used within that logo. And this is how we use those colors throughout the rest of the materials. Um, in terms of a case study, this is a little slim for me because it's like you're going through like logo. Here's what it looks like on a bunch of materials. Here's what the logo looks like if we made a neon.
Yeah.
And then
It's
here's some
going through it
merch.
quick.
You know, so like what else? What I would say is, you know, like you might find yourself in a situation where you need to revisit some of these and expand on what it is that you want to be doing, right? So like if you're doing web design, build out a dope website, design a dope website, like a couple of pages, you know, your home page, an order page or something, right? Um, and show that. And
Mhm.
then go as far as like, okay, cool. So like obviously they're gonna have a social media now. So what does like social media look like for them and how do they work with images and like this new idea of a brand, right?
Mhm.
Then get into like the yeah, we put some merch together and like have fun with this. Like you like this is a cool project because like I think there's this moment right now where bowling, like the old school bowling fashion is like in. So like go find
Yeah.
some cool bowling shirts and like Photoshop the logo embroidered on it, right? Like how much is that going to take you? It's like find decent enough resolution image, figure out like an embroider plugin or you know action on Photoshop and like put the logo in like real situations or like give like the brand some personality with some of that stuff rather than just slapping it on a black tee. Like everyone can do that, so like
Yeah.
that's kind of important to think about. You know, like you
Mhm.
want to build out. Can you hear my dog in the background?
No.
Oh, lovely. I love this mic. Perfect. Um, you want to put like you really want to position this as like, yeah, this is a brand. This is like a brand identity that I've done. And this is the extent of work that I've walked through and that I can do for like the, you know, whatever company you're looking to get hired by or whatever client you're looking to work with. Um, it's just not, you know, right now it's just like again, it's a little thin in terms of, you know, substance for me. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I
let's
hear that. I see it.
now looking at that, now let's look at Groovy Grandpa. Okay. So
Yeah. So the
already you can see how we can use that same idea here because you have, you know, immediately when I clicked this, I was like, okay, cool. You have patterns, you have, you know, cool little icons. Like this looks fun, you know, like, but now we need to take all that articulate, you know, that process and like actually get it on the page, articulate it, write it down, you know, like
yeah.
this looks like a cool thing. Like Groovy Grandpa, awesome. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell me about this project.
Oh, I thought you were like talking about it. This was a passion project that I came up with. It was I I wanted it to be a clothing brand. I thought it was like a cool name, so I went and bought the domain. I was like, this could work. So it's like a super uh, vintage retro style clothing brand that I honestly designed when I was out tree planting. I wanted to be very like 70s inspired, like outdoorsy, granola girl kind of thing, like using like very retro patterns and that kind of stuff. And I honestly just had a lot of fun with it and then just kept expanding on it because I felt super inspired.
Okay. So all of those things that you mentioned, you want it to be like, you know, retro, granola girl, bring that into these designs. Not saying that it's not there in terms of what you created, but like show me the people that are going to wear this stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Show
yeah.
me who the audience is. Show me and like again, this is like, you know, I love that you have this and this is like a passion project because there's some merit, not merit to it, but there's some like involvement that you want to have
Mhm.
with this. And perhaps in a
Yeah.
couple of years or a couple of months, whatever, you're like, yeah, I want to take this further, you know, but like for the purposes of your portfolio, I think it would be great to work on this now, and see how far you want to take it. Because not only is like, whether this like comes to fruition and you start selling this as a real brand, it's still going to be super valuable for your portfolio. Like there's nothing wrong with having made up projects for your portfolio. Like again, my first project online is it came up to life, but it was a project that I just came up with in my room, in my apartment. And then I went and did every weekend and just like went through it and took it as far as I possibly could. Half the stuff I do now is very much like that. It's like, I have this idea, I want to see it through. And now as a designer, I have this great, awesome superpower where I can like make it super believable, so like push it as far as you possibly can. I mean, like, have fun with it. Like you have this paper texture, like just a note for just in general with me, I think paper textures are so like, it's not really paper, but whatever, but you have it. So use it like an opportunity to make like a poster, like what would Groovy Grandpa look like if they did like they call them like snipe campaigns where they just do like the wheat paste. Like what would that look like, like what would that look like if a bunch of people walk through a wall of like this cool pattern, even better, like there's a ton of websites where you can like find really out there mocks. And so like, what does Groovy Grandpa's like basement couch look like, with this pattern all over it, right? Like take it as far as possible. People, if you want to get into more branding and you want to get into more of that agency setting where you're doing some of these things, that is really going to like show people that you're thinking about how far you can extend the brand's visual language and like how far it can go. And I think that like this is a great opportunity for you to do that with this. Like, yeah, everyone uses the Behance printed marketing materials, and like I've done it, but after a while it's like brands really aren't asking for this shit a lot, and when they are, it's like they're big corporate brands. But now like both could probably agree, like the brands that we like are not doing corporate materials. They're doing like cool shit, like, having a bonfire in the middle of a city with like a dope 70s, textured couch, like in the middle of the street, So like I would say this, going back to this full-time job, right? Like I would go back, I would like really think about it. Like, can you stick it out for a couple of months while you have, that like reliability, and take the time after hours to like really put some work into this? Because I think that is I don't want to like sway you in one direction or another, but like when it came to me, I worked a lot of time after work to do stuff like this, where it felt for me that I was like a little bit more secure and a little bit more financially stable. And that's kind of like that's the wisdom I try to part on a little bit. Like, people are like, how do I go freelance? And I'm like, well, I went freelance after like 9 years of doing this, and I built up like a nice little stockpile of savings so that if I fail, I don't have to like, go crazy.
Paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
So like that's like, I never want to push people to just jump into something that they may or may not be ready for, but figure out like what's going to work for you to really kind of give some of these projects some love.
Yeah, you're right. And I've been really busy with freelance actually right now, so it's kind of like I work all day and then I get home and I'm just doing whatever project's going on this week. But a lot of them have been illustration rather than branding.
Yeah, and I just got off of like a review with another designer where they had a lot of these things that they're interested in, right? So they were doing like illustration, photography, design, great. But she had said like, yeah, eventually I want to have like my own little business. Like I want to be able to do more design work. I want to work with my own clients. Great. Whatever that is for you, figure out, and well, not figure out, but like think about what it is that you want to be working on like all the time. Like I used to be a photographer when I was a kid. And I say kid, like from the ages of like 20 to 23. Like I used to work as a photographer and like go to events and shoot all day. And I thought for a while that I wanted to do that. But after after a couple of years, I was like, I'm kind of tired of like running around with a camera on my back all day and taking pictures and then having to go home and edit. And like, I actually would rather do this design stuff. And so I just slowly let that fade away. Now, I'm not saying that's what you should do for illustration, but if your right now passion is like one way or the other, just think about how they might affect each other and think about if that's like what you want to be giving your time to, right? Like if illustration work is taking up all your time, do you want that still to be a part of what you do? And if it is, that's fine. But like, how do you work it into the stuff that also you want to be doing as well, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of finding that crossroad between like branding and illustration and like doing it together. And like recently I've been doing a ton of like merch work for people. So like I'm working with a drag queen right now and I'm doing all of her merch for her like UK tour or something. Where now I'm like it's 90% illustration.
But I mean, like, you know, there's kind of an element like you mentioned where it's kind of like branding stuff, right? So the thing I think sometimes might get confused a bit is, yes, you are good at illustration, right? And like you said, there's kind of an element of branding in there. Doesn't mean like, and I don't want to say like you're not an illustrator. I'm not saying that, but I'm kind of it's going to sound like that, like, but because you're good at illustration doesn't mean you're an illustrator. It means you're good at it. Just like you could be good at graphic design doesn't mean that's how you want it. Like you don't want to be a graphic designer, or do you, like it's kind of like it's a language thing, I guess is the best way to say it. Like yeah, I can draw, but I wouldn't call myself like or I could take a picture, but I wouldn't call myself a photographer right now, right?
Yeah.
I'm a graphic designer and I'm really good with a camera. Like I'm really good with a camera. I know that. I'm confident in that. Yeah. And any opportunity that I see that I can work that in, then I absolutely will. But like the way I present myself to the world and to clients and to, you know, on social media is I'm a graphic designer. And I have all these other interests. Like I can build a website from scratch. I can develop like you could kind of say like an engineer developer, whatever, technologist. I am really good with a camera. I have a whole setup here, you know, and I can whip it around and have it do whatever I want. I do automation, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like I do all these things, but at the end of the day, I'm a graphic designer and I know when those opportunities arise, I can confidently do those things. And I think there's a little bit of that here with you as well. And there's nothing like that you can, like, there's no reason for you to not show, like, obviously the Groovy Grandpa stuff was done, like you did it and you did the illustration, you did the typography, whatever it may be, right? And that shows through the work, you know, like you don't have to get it confused with like, yeah, I'm a graphic designer and I'm an illustrator and I'm a photographer, you know, like I like to believe that it's simpler for people to understand when you just present them one thing, have them think that, and then be like, yeah, this is the work I do, you know, like, yeah, it's good design, it's good illustration work. Oh yeah, I did that illustration, blah, 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 things like that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
And I don't want to tell you to like, I want you to think on this, right? Because I don't want to tell you, don't say that you're an illustrator, don't say you're a graphic designer. You need to decide for yourself, like, what is it that I want people to know about me and how? Like, for example, there is a guy that I often reference. His name is Jeff Perky, great design studio out of like somewhere in the South, like Tennessee or Georgia or something like that. I don't know. And when I first saw some of his work, I actually know what a better example, Aaron Draplin. Do you know who Aaron Draplin is?
I don't think so.
Okay, look this guy up. I'll send him in the reference as well. But Aaron Draplin's a great example of a dude who can like put together a dope logo, knows illustration and can like vectorize like a lot of really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like, you know, he labels himself as a designer, as like a maker of things. And like, you just know that he can do that stuff by looking at his work. And I think like sometimes people want to like throw these labels on of like, yeah, I'm an illustrator, I could do all this stuff. And I think it's helping them. But at the end of the day, I actually disagree. I think it's taking away from, you know, that focus and for presenting it to people and how they kind of like how it clicks in their mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What else should we look at?
I think so. In this, in the bottom there, I have the bottom two are two illustration. There's no case studies. It's just some of my illustration work. So like that one's a bunch of drag queens for the zodiac signs that I have.
Okay.
Like I sell prints. So those were just kind of, for example, and then the other one at the bottom was just illustrations of people that I was doing. And I just wanted to put on there, like just to show my skills. But it doesn't necessarily help on a branding aspect. You know what I mean? Like if I'm trying to get a branding job.
Yep. Agreed.
But then again, it was like I was also told or kind of advised to just put everything you do on, or like
no. Hey, listen, it's fine, right? Like it's gotten you here. People see it. Take the time now to like think about, how do I want people to see my work? How, like, what do I want them to see of my work, you know? And I would almost like, going back to this like idea of like getting in preparation to go on to new opportunities, right? Get really focused on those opportunities and what kind of work they do and sort of replicate it in your portfolio. Like, you know, like in the sense of, you know, if you're going for an agency that does a lot of branding and marketing, make sure there's a lot of branding and marketing work in your portfolio. You can have, I don't want to say like take this stuff away, but what I would do is silo it off into a page that is in your back pocket that you can like, sure, pull up whenever you want, but isn't like the first thing that people see, you know, like really quickly on a note on homepage. I think like when you do start to update some of these things, I think it would be valuable again to have like 3 headline projects that are like nice, really well put together, complete and cohesive with like lots of descriptions and lots of imagery. I think again, silo these pages off to somewhere that like, you know where they are, but maybe not like the most accessible pages for people to get to. Because again, like your work, your illustration is going to come through in a project like this, you know? And I'm never really a fan of a big grid like this, especially for someone that is like, I'm going to go ahead and say like, you're younger, you're early in your career. Like this makes everything feel the same. This makes everything feel like you have a lot of work, which I would argue, yes, you have a lot of stuff that you've made, but they're not those like really complete case studies, you know? And that's like the difference, you know? And so I would think about like, okay, when I do reduce this down to like 3 or 4 projects, how do I want those to feel, look, and how do I present those on my page? You know, does it make sense to have them all on a grid? Well, you know, like I'm sure in this time you'll find like a bunch of portfolio examples on Google or on the web, on the internet that will give you different ideas of how you can present your work, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And like, honestly, I don't really have very many designer friends to like get feedback on, and I haven't been working in a designer agency at all. So like, I'm really happy that I could do this with you and just kind of go through it. Cause like, literally I haven't got any feedback on this since I've done it. Like I did this like 2 years ago almost.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, good thing is there's like I have a Slack group that you'll get an email with that you can join. It's just designers, illustrators, and other creatives. So, you know, you're more than welcome to join. Are there any other things that you want to go over, you know, separate from your portfolio website, like any questions or anything like that?
Honestly, like not really. Like I feel like there are more questions that I feel like I already know the answer to. Like I was leaning towards just freelancing, doing this, but I have a feeling you're just gonna say like get some experience and then freelance, because I feel like you learn more in those group settings and like with people around you and stuff.
Yeah, not only that too, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that the woman that you're working with, the one that you're doing the merch with is potentially a project that you may or may not be undercharging yourself.
Potentially.
Potentially. There's a doubt, right? So there's a little bit of doubt. The reason why I like to push people into like those settings where you're going to have like ultimately at the end of the day, like there's a whole other conversation about the business of design that people need to gain experience about and learn about to really feel
Yeah.
comfortable and confident about like how they price their work and stuff like that. And that's the other reason why I don't like push people to immediately go freelance, because like you can go freelance and you can have a ton of people, and those people are only paying you a couple $100s per project, and you're doing a shit ton of work. And at the end of the week, you're looking back and you're like, damn, I'm so tired and I don't have enough to pay my bills or something like that. And that's a tough situation to be in. That's like worse than if you were to stay in a setting in something a little bit more stable. Yeah, it might be a little bit more boring, but you're going to learn like what is the cost for some of these things? Like how do people value this stuff? Because at the end of the day, you know, like something like merch, like that person is, you know, profiting off of this work. So like, what is that worth to them? And what is that worth to you? There's a whole, you know, again, there's another conversation about pricing and all that shit, but like, you have to look at it that way. Now, I'm not saying you need to go and charge this person, you know, thousands of dollars to do merch, but having that experience and learning about that will teach you how to like, well, how to like maintain something that's viable for you. So like instead of doing like a ton of different options of merch for her, you would then potentially go and say like, listen, I'm going to do 5 shirts for you for this price. That's going to work for me. Does that work for you? And like, that's going to be more manageable because you're a little bit more experienced in how this rodeo goes, you know?
Yeah, they basically onboarded me as like, I want to almost say like an employee. Like they're going to be doing like, I'm charging them hourly and we're going to do like every 2 weeks kind of thing as a payment, because it looks like there's going to be constant work coming in. So I don't think I'm going to be undercharging. Like I don't think I am personally. Because like once the design portion's done, especially with merch, it's like 99% mock-ups, like all mock-ups.
Sure.
Like,
so I mean, that's
and
good then. Then that's a good
yeah,
good place to be. And that's something that you can hold on to while you're also doing this other work. And then at the end of the day, you can look back and say, cool, I can put this in my portfolio and show like all the different work that I did, you know,
yeah, exactly.
like as long as you feel good in that and you're learning and like at the end, like come out with something that you're proud of, great. But again, like the reason why I kind of say all of that is I don't want, like I've been in the situation where I've undercharged, been in the situation where I'm overworked. And like part of doing this stuff is like making sure people don't do that, because like creators are very easily taken advantage of, you know?
Oh yeah.
So, you know, like keeping an eye out for the rest of anyone on the internet that does this stuff is sort of like, you know, something that I want to make sure that people get away from or get from these portfolio reviews.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I get that. And I'm sure I appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. Especially in like the creative world, where I feel like it's a big community, but it's not the biggest. Like it's still pretty tight knit.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions or anything you want to go over or talk about before we potentially sign off?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you have any questions or you want to send me updates, you have my email. After this review, you'll get an email from me probably in about 5 minutes or so. It's just going to have like a link to, it's going to have a link to the Slack group that I mentioned. It's also going to have a link with like 2 questions. The faster you can fill that out, that'll like let me know where I should send the recording link and the notes document as well from this. Okay.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
All right. It was, excuse me. It's lovely to meet you, Lucas, and have a great rest of your day. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.